In this episode of Adventure Sparker, I continue working on my Water-ful Wizard of Oz Waterpark blueprint. This includes building out a Munchkinland area, a snazzy new park entrance, and a lot of pathing work. All of this and more coming up in today's episode, so without any further ado, let's spark some adventure!
Let's let the good times roll.
Good day everyone, and welcome back to Adventure Sparker. And welcome back to my Water-ful Wizard of Oz build. For those of you who didn't see the first episode, this is a Wizard of Oz inspired water park blueprint that I'm working on, and my plan is to submit it to a contest that's being done by Channel 5 Gaming, who is another big Planet Coaster creator. And I haven't really done anything with the water park stuff yet, so this is really my chance to experiment with it all and basically learn the game as I go. So what I just did there is I fixed some rock work over by the edge of the wave pool there. I did some of that off camera before. If you remember my last video, I had a big jump where I did a lot of stuff off camera building the facades and like the Emerald City buildings. And part of that was also fixing some rock work along the edge, like where there's no path connecting. So I just wanted to do that on the other side. And now what I'm doing is moving that central lighthouse tower. Again, that's something that I actually built before I started doing recordings for this channel. But that is a waterside tower containing two intertwining slides. There's a pink Glinda side and an enclosed Wicked Witch side. So they just twist around each other. The Glinda side is transparent, whereas the Wicked Witch side is enclosed and ends in like a toilet bowl element. I forget what it's called in game. Like in real life, I always just called it a toilet bowl. But I wanted to move it over to the side because two reasons. One, I felt like because the tower was so huge, it blocked that view of that back wave pool, pump house, facade, whatever you want to call it. The stuff with the wizard that I worked on in the last episode. I felt like that was a very important focal point, and I didn't want to have the tower obstructing it. Now, I did like the idea of having something in the middle there, so eventually I'm going to be putting a smaller, like almost like a splash pad style building on that little pad, but something much shorter that doesn't block the view. The other thing is, I felt like the Emerald City facade was a little unbalanced. Like I felt like I needed something on that left side of the wave pool to really make it balanced. Like I was going to say, symmetrical isn't the word, because I don't want it to be symmetrical. I want it to be very organic and very, like a living, breathing city. Like it's not going to look symmetrical, but that balance was key. And I think the tower does that. Like it kind of creates an anchor for where the Emerald City starts within the build, because as you're going to see later on in the episode, I'm going to be dressing up the front half of the area more like Munchkinland. So because this is the blueprint, I can't do anything too big or too sprawling, but I kind of have the two distinct like Munchkinland and Emerald City zones blend into each other. Then of course we have the Wicked Witch's castle over to the side, and then along the water coaster, I want to have that dressed up with elements from Dorothy's journey along the Yellow Brick Road. So, having the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. And so I'm going to be making those figures out of art shapes, and you'll be going alongside them as you come out of the funnel and make your way towards that second water jet blaster. With moving that tower, I had to do a lot of work with the pathing and a lot of work with the pools, and kind of like what I said last time, I do a lot of fiddling around with the pathing to get it just right, which is fine. Like it took me a while to really learn how to do what I want to do with the pathing and do what I want to do with the pools, but what I find out is that pretty much anything is possible. You just have to have the patience for it. You need the patience, and then you need to have a good understanding of the tools. And as I'm going along, I'm starting to figure all that out. So, using the delete stamp to get precisely the spots where I want the pads to be, using the nodes to get the curves right, getting those straight edges where I need them, getting the widths perfect. It all comes together. It just unfortunately takes it takes up a huge amount of time in my builds, but the end result is very satisfying. So I'm really glad that I am slowly starting to become a master in that area. The other thing I did is I kept that shallow pool around the tower. I really liked having that water feature there. So even if I can't have the entirety of the wave pool, that little like walking, I don't know, it's more like a puddle more than anything, but I liked having the water feature. I do need to clean up some of those supports eventually. That'll probably be one of the last things I do, because some of the supports are perfect. Like they're angled into the tower, where some of them for some reason drop straight down from the flume into the ground, and it just makes it look busy. So I might need to go through and edit so those vertical supports are not there, and I might need to do some custom support work, which is intimidating because I've never done that before. And I've kind of tried to avoid it as much as possible, but you know what, maybe this is my my chance to learn. Okay, and yeah, here's what I was talking about earlier, fitting in that central area with a smaller slide. This is one of the body slides. I think that's what it's called in the game. Like the body flumes are more like your traditional body slide in a water park that you can twist and do all sorts of different things with. Whereas the body slide, you can't curve this. Like it's a straight kind of thing, almost like what you would see in the kiddie area of a water park. So that's what I want to do. Like I don't really, you know, I can't really create a separate kids area, so I just have that one in the middle, and it jumps into the pool. Like I guess it's not really that much of a kiddie slide because it has a decent enough drop. Like I think I could have gone more extreme, but it's kind of that middle ground between something that's super thrilling and something that's good enough for kids. And then here, what I'm doing is I want to do stuff in my builds that's not like I want to avoid boxy builds when I do these buildings. And that's something that Johnny from Channel 5 Gaming has said, some advice that he's given to some of us newbies in the community. And of course, I want to make this good quality. I want to win this contest. I'm just kidding. I mean, I do want to do my best, but I'm definitely taking the advice that I hear to heart. And so one of the things that I'm doing here is angling that wall, and that can be done with the half-wide pieces. I wish I could do it with the full-wide pieces, especially because I had to scale up that piece to make it the appropriate length, but it works. The only other thing that I'm kind of working out here is I didn't like that gap in the corner, so I tried out a few different pillars. I tried putting another one of those wall pieces on the side there to fill it. I didn't quite like any of it, so I end the episode with leaving those corner spots open, and part of me likes it, but part of me also wants to fill it. So I don't know what I'm going to do about those corners, but they're left open for now. And then I have a nice little gilded roof up there, and I close that off. I do want to do more work on this structure. Like I want to make it a little more detailed, maybe add, I don't know, something, because it's a little basic right now. I do need to add windows and doors and all of those kind of details to the rest of the park as well. But again, that's probably going to be something that I do close to the end, because I'm wary of my pieces. Like I don't think I'm getting close to the limit now. Still, like I think I have at least 2,000 pieces to work with. But again, I want to make sure I'm not overdoing anything too early, and all of those little tiny details I can do at the end. So then if I need to, you know, kind of hold back a bit, I can. Anyways, as I was talking about that, I started work on my Munchkinland style architecture. So the Munchkinland buildings are kind of cool because they're mostly white walls with the thatched roofs, and thankfully those are pieces that are readily available in the game. So most of them are those more circular style buildings, like, you know, just cylinders. Oh my gosh, I cannot speak today. But yeah, they're those cylindrical style buildings. I did create this bigger one, and that is eventually going to be outfitted as a change room. See, I just added the piece there. Perfect timing with the commentary on that. And I created them offsite over there so I could duplicate them in and then make little changes later. Again, eventually I'm going to have to detail everything, put some barriers in there just to control guest flow, although I noticed some issues once I let guests into that part of the park, so I might need to redo that. I don't know. I feel like guests are really glitchy in this game. But yeah, I have that building placed there for now, but eventually I decided that I wanted to add some elevation to that area, because if you look at any pictures of Munchkinland, or if you watch the film, you'll see that you have the yellow brick road there on the ground level, but then most of the buildings are kind of on these secondary levels, and there's staircases and everything's at different scales and different heights. So that is something that I really wanted to emulate. So that's kind of what I'm working on here, getting ready for that. Scaling back my paths, again, deleting some of those pieces and using the nodes to push them back and make room for that secondary level. Now, one thing that I'm also kind of careful with for the paths is I want to make sure that the path pieces are big, and I'm not using I'm not dividing the path pieces too much, because again, the paths do count towards my piece limit. So again, I don't want to waste too much on pathing when I really need to use that for buildings and details. So I try to use the nodes where I can, and I also have the merge option selected to off, so that way I'm adding onto the pieces and not dividing them up. Maybe in another video I can show you exactly what I mean by that, because that's kind of hard to explain orally. And here what I'm doing, I want guests to enter into the land through Dorothy's house. So if you see, anytime you see me pause on the screen for a really long time and I'm not doing much movement, that's usually because I'm pulling up my phone and trying to find reference pictures. So I do this with most of my builds, actually. Even if I'm not replicating something exactly, I'll try to find some reference pictures for inspiration and try to go off of that, because I am not an expert in anything related to architecture. If I was left to my own devices, my builds would be so basic and so boxy, so I really need these reference pictures to kind of make me go, oh, I should scale things like this, and I should have little things jutting out like that. So you can see that that side piece of the house, that's why I'm using those half-wide pieces again, because I get to break the grid, I get to go in ever so slightly, like pull it in so it's narrower, but not quite to the extremes of doing a full 4-meter change in width. The other reason why I wanted to use those half-width pieces for this part is because, of course, when Dorothy finds herself in Oz, her house has just been through a twister. So it's going to be a little bit broken, it's going to be all bent. So that section, once I attach it to the rest of the house, it's going to be on an angle, so it looks just like it did in the movie. But yeah, this was actually a pretty cool build, because it's relatively basic, but again, having those extra dimensions make it a little more interesting. You can even see with the roofs, I used the pallets for it, so it kind of has that broken up look, and I just, tilted them slightly and moved them inwards, just so they're not perfectly straight, they're slightly out of shape, and yeah, I placed it in just like that. Of course, I'm eventually going to have something to have the Wicked Witch of the East legs sticking out from underneath. I haven't worked on that yet. That'll probably be something that I do the next time I fire up the game. There's actually a lot of work that I need to do that I don't quite finish in this video, in terms of mostly details. I think that's that's the moral of the story here. I'm kind of doing the basic parts of the build, and then some of the finer details will come in later. Another thing that I gotta do is I gotta fix up the paths, because they all have railings on them, which is something that I thought I wanted at first, but now that all of the buildings are coming in, they just get in the way and they make everything look weird, and they block off things that I don't want blocked off. So yeah, I'm gonna have to change up all the paths. I'm also not totally satisfied with the path that I use for this area. Like, of course, I have the yellow brick road, which is I don't think I'm touching that anymore. I've already put in so much work trying to get that to be the way that it is, so I think I'm leaving that. But the area around, I don't know, I don't know if I want to change the color, because if you go by the books, the color of Munchkinland is red, and you also have that red swirly path in the movie as well, in addition to the yellow brick road. And I couldn't get that swirl effect to really work here. Like the angles were just not going in my favor. But maybe if I just color that entire area red, that'll work. But then I don't know if I want that red to continue over to the Emerald City side as well. Like I might want to switch colors there. I do like how that, like it's kind of like a sandstone texture. I do like how that looks against the green in the Emerald City, and it still contrasts enough with the yellow brick road in that area. But maybe I want to change it to green, or there's actually like a jazzy mosaic texture that might look good. I don't know, I might need to play around, but if you have any suggestions, let me know. But yeah, as I was saying all that, I'm still working on Dorothy's house. I added a bit of an awning there, and I'm using the stamp tool to get some path pieces to act as her porch. Technically, that porch should be raised up ever so slightly, but getting that to work with the actual paths, it didn't seem logistically possible to me, at least at this stage in my Planet Coaster career. So I just kind of left it flat. And you know what? Just having that different texture there makes all of the difference. And there I'm getting some floor pieces, which I kind of put together the path using the stamping tool outside of the building, and then dragged it in, and then ruined it all by placing that shop there. Because originally I was thinking I would have like my information booths within Dorothy's house, but as you're going to see, I actually end up extending that building a little more, and so those information booths kind of exist before you get into this room. And that's another thing that I gotta work on in the future. I'm gonna be detailing the inside of Dorothy's house with maybe, I don't know, maybe her bed, maybe a few props, just something to dress it up a little bit so you're just not walking through a wooden tunnel. And yeah, here just adding a little more detail to the Munchkinland buildings, adding a body dryer to the one, which was pretty difficult because these are rounded buildings, but a square facility that I'm trying to put in there. So what I had to do is cut out one of the sides, make a separate building, and then use those half-width pieces to close in that gap, just like I'm doing there. It was very difficult. I was thinking about doing more of these. This is the only one I make. I do duplicate it for restrooms as well. But yeah, and then I'm just adding a couple pillars there just to round it out, because I felt like that overhang didn't work for me. And you think, like, you know, like since I'm cutting out so much of that roof, like you'd imagine there'd be something to support it there. And then I guess I hadn't quite decided to do that second level yet, so here I'm just experimenting with that. I was gonna angle it so that when you walked in, you know, you'd have the change rooms facing you, and you know, I was kind of going back and forth about it. I'm like, okay, if I do a second level, that's quite a bit more work to do. I gotta change the paths that I worked so hard on already, but then I'm like, you know what, we gotta do it. And the extra levels really do add a lot to the area. Like, it just, I don't know, the extra dimensions make sense. It makes it feel more alive. And again, it's a challenge for me. Like, it's intimidating, but sometimes you just gotta go for it. And, you know, if it doesn't turn out exactly the way that you want, that's fine. At least you tried. And maybe the next time you have a go at it, you'll find it easier. And thankfully, in this case, I'm quite proud of the result. Yeah, I think I still want to do a bit more work on it. Like, I don't absolutely love everything about it. And once I go back in the game, I might make a few adjustments. But by the end of the video, you'll see what the general vision is. And I think I got that down pat. The vibes are there, at least. Like, you can see it and you're like, oh yes, that is definitely Munchkinland. And that's really all I wanted. And yeah, here, just doing more pathing work. And actually, I might skip through this because a lot of this is boring and repetitive, and just more of the same stuff that you've already seen. Okay, and here we go, starting with that second level there. And I really struggled with building this second level because I didn't want it to be too far away from the main area. Like, I didn't want to have the staircases to be too large, and I didn't want too much of a gap in between. So yeah, I go through a few different things trying to figure it out. I was going to start with the staircases and then try to connect them up, but I didn't quite love that. I play around with different snapping tools, like the length snap, the height snap. None of it really seemed to do what I wanted to do, and I didn't quite get the thickness that I wanted to do. Like here, like that path is way too skinny. Like I needed it to be much wider to support a larger amount of guests. So yeah, this is just going to be a lot of trial and error. I will keep this going though, because I think it's important for you to see my struggles and see how I eventually problem solve. But what I eventually do is I kind of start with that upper bit of path, and I really like the idea of having stairs lead up to it, because again, if you look at any reference image of Munchkinland, you see a lot of stairways leading up to what I assume are the Munchkins' homes. But then I kind of like the idea of having a ramp down to the one side, leading into the splashdown area for Wicked Twisters. It's not really clear whether that's part of the Emerald City or not. It's kind of a transition zone, but it kind of works perfectly to slope down to that. And from a realistic standpoint, you also got to keep accessibility in mind. Of course, when I build in Planet Coaster, I don't always think of that, but it is something that, like, if I was designing a real life park, of course you need these areas to be accessible to everyone, so you can't just have stairs up there, especially for a building as important as that, being the changing rooms. So it is a bit of a long way to go around. Like in real life, I would probably have a second path closer to the entrance, but Planet Coaster, it works. And again, I really do like the effects of having those two stairways and then the path leading down into the rest of the park. So yeah, then I bring in those first two buildings that I had, the changing rooms and the body dryer, reworked some of the path around it. It's a little close still, so that's why I kind of have different widths going on there, like that curve almost like a balcony in between the two stairways. And then here I'm just duplicating the Munchkinland building models that I made. And then I wanted these smaller ones, so I actually used one of the planters that are rescalable and added the thatched dome there to cap it off. And I think it works really well, and it adds a little more variety. So, you have some thicker ones, some smaller ones. It just creates a lot more dimension. Again, I might play around with this. Like, I like the background. I think the buildings that I actually have on the upper level are great, but these spaces in between, I don't totally love what I do. And you'll see that I go through a couple different ideas. Because I also try to incorporate some planters in there, like that little white box. Well, there I go. I'm doing exactly what I said I was going to do. I'm turning that into a planter. I didn't quite love it because it ends up blocking the view of the changing rooms, and I felt like that should have been a good focal point. So again, I'm not totally happy with how this turns out, but the vibes are there. The general template is in place. So what I might do is I might go back to my reference images and try to maybe more closely replicate that, or I just might have to move things around and just, do some trial and error. But yeah, the vibe is good. Like I think I got the general architectural style and the general idea what I was going for down pat. So even if I don't end up coming back to it, it works. But yeah, I had a few more of those buildings to the other side of the plaza. Eventually I come back and add even more. So it basically goes all the way around that yellow brick road swirl. Then I add a bit of foliage to the area. Again, I don't really love how that one in the planter blocks the view. So I will come in and change that around eventually, but I do like the spots of pink. And it was funny because my fiance came in and said, "Oh, that's perfect because the pink is kind of representing Glinda." And I'm like, great, not what I intended, but it works. And then what I'm doing here is adding an extension to Dorothy's house. So of course, I want guests to enter into the water park from Dorothy's house into Munchkinland, but then I wasn't completely sold on having Dorothy's house be the thing that you see as you actually enter the park. So what I'm adding in here is a separate entrance area, and I'm kind of going for something very plain and very basic and almost cheap looking. Like, it's kind of giving community pool, local city-owned water park vibes. And of course, I moved my information booths into that area, which is great because it gives me a lot more space. It looks a little more corporate, I guess. I don't know the right word for it. But yeah, I really like that cheap kind of style. And then with those aquatic roofs, I kind of like those because it made it look more like a studio soundstage. And I'm like, that's perfect. Combining that like cheap community pool vibes with the soundstage vibes, it just creates this really neat transition where you're kind of entering from, the plain kind of cheap blah of the real world into the stunningness of the water park, which is supposed to be, you know, a high budget park. So it kind of simulates that same transition that Dorothy had when she first came to Oz from Kansas. Okay, jumping ahead a little bit here, I had opened up the park just so I can see how guests interact with the area, and yeah, like I was saying earlier, the guests are really glitchy because they came in, they walked all the way to the queues of some of the slides, they just stared at it and then turned around. And then I have a bunch of staff stuck in front of the body dryer, like they're just standing there, like all weird and not moving. Yeah, you can kind of see them in the corner there. But yeah, for some reason, the guest interactions aren't great. I might just need to delete some things and then redo it. But at least I know that, you know, there's something that needs to be done there. Or not. I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those game glitches that I have to live with. But yeah, now we're back to that front entrance area, that sound stage, community pool, what have you building. And I thought it'd be cool to have like a painted style logo. Again, kind of leaning into that general vibe. And I add these rainbow pieces to the outside, which just adds a little bit of color. Like, again, it still looks cheap and, you know, in stark contrast to what you see inside the park. But it's still kind of nice to have those bits of color. And again, it ties into that Wizard of Oz theme right from the beginning. What do I do next? I don't quite remember. Oh, just a few more adjustments. Again, trying to fix that sight line. I don't think I get it quite right. I think I need to do a little more work there. Maybe I actually got to push the paths back and open up the space. I don't know. Just something needs to be done. Like, I'm not totally satisfied with it. I know I've said that a million times, but we'll get there. And then I decide that I want to add a few more guest amenities before I forget. So I just add a few restaurants there. I was going to add a vending machine. I didn't quite love it, and I didn't want to put it into the entrance building because I was worried about guest flow issues. So what I eventually settle on is doing a latte love, and I think it'd be really cool to have a little cafe in Munchkinland. I'm not quite happy with that either. I do get something that works, but I think I want to actually go back and add some of that height to the right side of the entrance as well, because I really only did that on the left, but now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of want to do it on the right too. The only thing with that side is that it's so squished up against the funnel for the water coaster, so I don't have a lot of room to work with. So you know what, now that I'm saying it out loud, I might just have to deal with it. Maybe I can play around with the heights of the buildings a little more to get that to get those levels in. You know what, it kind of works. Yeah, I'll just have to play around with it, or just be happy with what I have. Oh, here I'm just adding some flowers to fill in those gaps. It's not perfect. Like, I need to add more. Like, I don't fill up the entire space. I just wanted to do a little test because I eventually want to surround that front area with like, there's no tulips in the game, but I want to give off that flowery vibe like you see in the Wicked movie. So I just wanted to do that test. Again, that's something that I'll do closer to the end when I have a better idea of how many pieces I have to work with, because again, I don't want to overdo it and go over the limit. But yeah, just finishing off this Munchkinland area with some toilets. I kind of take that same design and swap out the body dryer with cubicle, and then just took off one of those upper levels just to create a little more variety in the height. We have that latte love shop there, and then I'm just playing around with the positions. You know what, it actually doesn't look half bad now that I'm seeing it again. Like, I think I overthink things, and I think that little bit helped there to just fill in those gaps. Of course, gonna fill in the back side of those buildings as well. Yep, adding more trees. Figuring out the paths. Yeah, just a lot of nitpicky things that I do in this part of my play. And then I forgot those custom, like the smaller houses made from the planters. The color was slightly off from the plaster that I used on the other building, so I just changed that real quick. And yeah, oh, yeah, so I took out that main planter. I forgot that I even did this, so maybe I don't need to fix anything after all. So I took out that boxy planter with the cherry blossom, and I'm replacing it with these rocks and just trying to get them sloped. And I kind of do like that. You know what? Maybe I'm fine. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Adventure Sparker. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. Again, everything that I'm doing right now on this channel is super experimental for me. I mean, I guess I'm not doing anything terribly groundbreaking at the moment, but I'm still, getting used to stuff. So I do appreciate your feedback. I got a couple great comments on my last video, so I'll probably continue with this style, at least for a little bit. I might change it up eventually, but this kind of commentary style over the time lapse seems to be working well, and I'm enjoying it too. And it's not too much work for me to put together a video either. Like, it's really just a matter of talking over the length of what I recorded, which is great. So yeah, if you're still enjoying it, that's probably what I'll continue doing going forwards. Anyways, I think I want to do at least one more episode and try to finish things up. It might take me two, we'll see. But I do need to wrap this up sooner rather than later. I can't have this keep going and going. So be on the lookout for more from the Water-ful Wizard of Oz. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe. We're already at 15 subscribers at the time that I'm doing this recording. And it seems kind of crazy for me to be, getting all excited about 15 subscribers, but that's not nothing. Like, yes, I have another channel which has over 1,000, but it took me like 8 years to get there. So to already be at 15 now on this one, it's good. It's great. I am honestly so happy about the support that you've given this project, and it makes me feel good. I don't really have any huge plans for the channel. It'd be nice to have it monetized eventually. That's not really a main goal right now. This is really just my playground to have fun and blow off steam and share my creations and be a nerd on the internet. So but yeah, just to have that support is great. So if you enjoy what you see, do subscribe, hit that notification icon, all of that good stuff. Let me know if you have any thoughts or opinions about what I should do next. I already shared some insight into what I have planned, but if you have any ideas, I'd love to hear it. Well, that's all from me, but until next time, have a good one. Bye!